Welcome to the Modern CPA Success Show, where we're 100% focused on helping accounting firms achieve success. If you're an accounting firm owner who wants to learn how to provide virtual CFO services, then this podcast is for you.
All right, Kelly, I'm excited for this podcast today. How about you?
Yeah, Stephen Pope, one of my favorites.
So you've been working with Stephen for how long now?
Yeah, oh gosh, I don't know, several months. I signed up for his course maybe 6 months or so ago, and went through his course, and then he actually is like a part of the course includes a weekly again, I don't know if I'm calling it the right thing, but a mastermind group, group. So like kind of like a networking group, but everyone going through the course. And so it's really great. Everyone kind of talks through like where they're at with what they're learning and like, gets feedback from each other and just kind of talks through challenges and things like that. And so it's been really, really helpful for our marketing team at Summit.
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time on this podcast talking about video. So I think I can blame Stephen for you constantly getting on me about turning my video on and doing recordings. So I think it's a great topic. But I think what brought you to having that goal for this year? Is it something you saw other companies doing, or just something that you kind of thought we needed to do?
I came on with Summit a couple years ago, 2 to 3 years ago. And one of the things that stuck out to me when I came on the team is that Summit is very video first. And, back before the pandemic at that time, we would sometimes have meetings with companies where, we would be on video and they wouldn't, they wouldn't have their video turned on. I heard stories of when Summit first went to video before I was on the team, that employees were a little resistant to video, which now I don't see because everyone always has their videos on. And I realize it's really central to our culture. It's really central to who we are. And it's, we all work all over the country. And I feel like I know you guys better, the team members, well, not only all over the country, but I have a team member in the Philippines. And I know everyone very well. Like I hang out with them every day because we're on video. And so for me, I really wanted to showcase that. I thought that people seeing that side of Summit's culture in our marketing really would help them see who we are better. And it really has. I think it's made a really big difference for us.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I know when I first started at Summit and went to my first retreat, and you just, like you said, you felt like you know each other. I mean, you felt like the second you walk into the room, again, there's always that second or two of awkwardness of like, oh, wow, Jake's like 6'9", or, there's always just that second.
7 feet.
There's that second of awkwardness where you're just like, oh, I know this person really well, but I've never seen him before. It's been like 9 months since I've seen him in person. But then after that, it's like you're back to, old friends. And so I do think video is definitely a big part of our culture. And glad you brought Stephen on today. I think this is a really great topic, and I'm excited for our listeners to hear it.
Yeah, I think it's got lots of great things to teach and help us challenge us to be more video forward in our work.
Awesome. Well, let's get to the interview. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, and welcome to today's podcast. I am very excited about this podcast because the first reason I do not have Jody or Adam with me today, so we got to have a little more fun than we normally do. I'm joined by Kelly, who is our marketing director, and I'm also joined by Stephen Pope, who is the founder of SGP Labs. And I'm going to let him do his introduction, but I'm really excited to talk about some marketing concepts that he's promoting out there. So, Stephen, you want to do a quick introduction for us?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Again, I'm Steve Pope, and I run a Thought Leadership Accelerator program that basically helps professional service firms use their expertise to get business, and, to get inbound leads. And I do that with a combination of like content marketing, social media, and using those things to really build awareness about your brand, build trust in what you do, and ultimately get people reaching out to work with you to work with you.
Great. I appreciate the quick introduction. Now, Kelly, I know we've been working with Stephen for a while now. So do you kind of want to just talk about our connection there and how working with Stephen has worked for us?
Yeah. And Stephen, I may not say this right. You may have to clarify what I say, but we joined the mastermind group. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, the Digital Masters group.
Okay. Digital Masters Group. Okay, there you go. I go every week. I just don't remember what it's called exactly. But so we signed up for that course with Stephen, went through his course, and then he also has a weekly group meeting for anyone that's going through the course. So that has been my favorite part. I mean, nothing against your course. Your course was great too, but I really enjoy the interaction with other people that are going through it and learning from Stephen. So we actually made one of our goals last year for my team in marketing was to really work on our video marketing. We identified that in the accounting industry that typically accountants don't do video. They're not usually most of the I actually signed up for a couple of webinars as not an accountant, but just to kind of go and experience them and realize that accountants typically will do webinars with just slides and not video. And video is just a really big part of our culture at Summit. Everything we do is on video. And so I wanted to show that more to the world. And so I think Adam introduced me to Stephen, and we talked about this course that he was launching. And so I really wanted to take part in that and learn from Stephen what we could be doing, just the video, like kind of the logistics of everything, like how to do the, not just how to record the video, but just like how to do all the stuff. Like you record a video, then what do you do with it? And then we really focused a lot on LinkedIn. And, if you follow any of our main people, Adam, Jody, Jamie, Tom, from our CFO community, Tom Waddleton, if you follow those folks, you're going to see videos on their profiles a lot, because Stephen kind of taught us how to do some of that. So that's kind of our involvement. But Stephen, you can better explain your course, because I just know kind of what I've learned from it, but that's just a piece of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in general, just like in the course or just when I'm talking to people, I think one of the main thing I'm just trying to encourage people is to use video. And then going beyond that is like, because everyone says that, like you get that from a lot of different people. It's like use video, but it's kind of explaining why to do it. And then, and the reasons why is really just because it gives people exposure to like your personality. We all focus a lot on our websites, and in a lot of ways, our websites are becoming more and more obsolete because everybody has a website. They all claim to do similar things. We all claim to be the best at what we do, better than everyone else. We do the best results, but now that everyone's saying that, one of the easiest ways to kind of differentiate yourself is really just to be on video and to show who you are, show your personality, show how you come across, how do you articulate yourself. How do you educate people? And so number one, I'm always teaching is like, why do we do it? And then number two, it's like, so now that we know we should be doing it, how do you actually get on camera, articulate something important? And then after that, like, how do you actually like get this into your process, your daily or your weekly process so that it's consistent? Because, just doing it once isn't going to be enough, because there's other people. So it's just like, why do you do it? Like, how do you actually do it? How do you get over the different things that keep us from doing it? Like imposter syndrome, little things like that. Well, big things like that. And, and then how do you just make it consistent and part of your flow so that it doesn't like take over your team? It doesn't take over all the things you need to do, because you got a bunch of other things you got to do as well. So it's like, how do you make this practical? And then how do you improve it over time?
I think the big thing here at Summit is we're extremely comfortable on camera, right? Like we're on camera all day long, but I think that also is a detriment to us sometimes when it comes to recording these things, because, I'm so comfortable on camera because I'm with it with my clients all the time, and I'm with it with Kelly or people, and every time we're in a room, we're on camera. But there's a different when you're recording, because if I was walking around or if I was doing something while I'm recording here, which I'm more comfortable doing, it's just different sitting here and looking at a screen and just talking. And so it takes a little bit of while to get over that hump for us. Is that something pretty common you see for companies like us that are so used to using cameras?
Well, I guess I would say you guys are an exception in a lot of ways, because a lot of companies just aren't doing video at all. I guess one thing that's been good about the pandemic is that most people show up to Zoom meetings and have their camera on. I remember before the pandemic, it was like people would show up to Zoom meetings and they wouldn't have their camera on, and you're just like,
People, it's kind of forced people to get over that fear of it. It is a reality of working from home, and
Right.
and you don't have to be afraid of it. Like, it's okay to be on video. And what you were saying, Jamie, though, I think sometimes we will be so comfortable. It's like we have meetings where, you're eating lunch, or you're like looking at this screen, even though like we know that we're talking to each other and it's fine. But then when you're doing something, like if you're going to put it on LinkedIn, you kind of need to be like looking at the camera, totally like in that zone.
Or even
And
these
one of the
podcasts,
things,
right? Like in these podcasts, we've done 16 hours, recorded all of them, and I can look at some of them like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at the wrong screen or something like that.
Yeah.
You're just so like critical of yourself. But yeah, again, we've been recording a lot more lately. So,
well, one of the things though that Stephen teaches is like it's okay to not be perfect. Like
yeah,
it's
that's true.
that shows that
Yeah, you do got to get started.
Yeah, and you're real, like, right? We're all it's okay to just be yourself.
Yeah, and then the other thing that's kind of fun, this is kind of where I have a lot of fun with clients, is like helping them brainstorm something that's going to work for them. So there's obviously the type of videos where you get up on the video and you've kind of got a script that you're going through, and you work through it, and you're looking at the camera and you're being very specific, and like those take a little bit more practice to get good at those.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of have to think about like, how do you want to lay out the message? What's the framework that you're kind of delivering the message? But then there's other interesting ways as well, like just doing a podcast. Like here, we're recording this, it's on video. You make sure you're presenting yourself well. You've got your background is not just, it's organized. So you're doing a few things, but at the same time, you're just coming on and having a casual conversation. Typically, you can just kind of start to get in a mood and almost forget that you're on camera, and then you're just having a good conversation. And if you're strategic about it and you kind of think about how you're going to go back through that video, there's things that you can pull from it. You can publish the whole thing. You can publish little bits of it. And that's an easy way to get started. And then the interesting thing is that as you start to do these things, and this is why it's important not to make it perfect, is like it's impossible to, right? So if you try to make it perfect, you never will, and then you never learn the skills along the way. Like I started posting on LinkedIn, I guess about a year ago, video. If you go back to look at my first video, I'm really tense. I look really stressed out, you just have to kind of go through those things. There's things you can do to accelerate it, but you got to go through the process.
Well, you did a really good job of teaching like the scripting, but not being scripted. That was one thing I learned really well. So, Jamie, you mentioned that we are very comfortable on camera typically. I am in small settings, but I don't usually do presentations like you do. So for me to get on video and do something, it's a lot more stressful if I'm like trying to actually put together a video, I did that one, Stephen, that I shared with you where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this myself. It's not just for my team, but, and Stephen teaches like how to script it out and read your script, but not read your script. Be organized, have your thoughts organized so that you can present well. And I think we even talked about the fact that like you might record it 500 times the first time, and that's okay, but then you slowly get those nerves out and learn how to do it more smoothly.
Yeah, and there's actually a trick. So, you can script out the video, and then you can put the script up to your camera, and then you can just read it line by line. And if you make a mistake, you can just go back and reread that line, and then your editor can just come in and just like clip out the pieces that were mistakes, and they can splice it together. And it might sound like, well, how's that going to look? But it actually ends up looking fine. You can actually see that. Sometimes you can't even tell that the clips were taken out, but even if they are, like if it's something on LinkedIn, nobody really cares, and it just looks like your message is really succinct. And I think the reason why that's good is because when you do script something out, when you take a little bit of time to articulate the value that you're trying to present, like when you're ultimately in what I always look at is like when I sit down and I write a script, I want to say, like, I want the viewer to walk away and say, wow, I'm really glad that I watched that. Right. So I go into it thinking that, And then I think about like, okay, how am I actually taking them from one place to another? And then how do I bring a little bit of context to what I'm going to say before I say it? And then that way, when I go on video to present my idea, I feel like it has a lot of power to it. And I'm focused on helping somebody. And so then I'm not really focused like in my own head. I'm not like worried about how I look because I'm helping somebody. Like I've got like a reason and a purpose behind what I'm doing. And having that purpose, having the clarity of your message and feeling like it's powerful makes it a lot easier to go on camera because I don't know, it's just like you have a purpose. Like it's not just about you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I try to avoid scripted stuff. It makes me super nervous, and I've always been terrible with the script. But what I try to do is bullet points. Like I know these are the 5 topics I'm going to hit, and within those topics, if I did it 5 times, every time would sound a little different. And then the other part that's always really helpful for me is to throw stories in there. You know, if you're telling a story, then that's a good 5 minutes of 6 minutes of something you've told 1,000 times, and again, a couple words maybe different here or there, but like at least you can get from the beginning to the end with a similar path. And so that's always been super helpful for me in terms of scripting. Because I always remember in high school once we had to read from a page of paper, and I don't mind speaking in public, but when I had to read from a piece of paper, I was so nervous and I was fumbling over words and just doing awful. And it's just, I always think back to that. It's just something I've never been good at, is having a script to follow.
Yeah, actually, that's a great point because stories are a good way to kind of give yourself a framework to walk through without a script. And I often tell people as well, is like when you think about the story you're going to tell, try to keep in mind like it's like almost making them the hero in that story, so that they can relate to it. So like this is one thing that if people are listening, there's a book, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. He talks a lot about.
I almost had a copy here so I could show it. I knew you would bring it up.
He talks about like telling stories, but he frames it in such a way that it's like not necessarily your story. I mean, it is your story, but you're kind of interweaving the person you're trying to help into that story so that they can kind of see themselves and they can relate to you. And then it's like, then as you start to tell the story, it's like, instead of trying to remember like step by step what you're going to say, you're really just remembering an event or something and just kind of reiterating that and trying to tie in the person that's, the person that you're envisioning watching it, tying them into that so that they can relate to it. They kind of see you as the expert, and then they see you as someone that could be a guide to help them get to where they need to be.
Yeah, for sure.
So
go ahead, Kelly. Sorry.
You talked about, we talked about video and like you got to get out there and do it, but why, Stephen? Like talk about that a little bit. Just like, how does it benefit, typically on LinkedIn? I mean, I would say that's where, and we've worked on YouTube specifically, right, also, but why? How does that help a business owner with their marketing goals?
Well, the main thing that the main results that I get is that when I start talking to somebody, well, I'll say this, a lot of times people just reach out to me. So, and when they do, they'll say, hey, I've seen your videos. I've seen them for a while, actually. And a lot of the time what's interesting too, is that the people that reach out are not necessarily the people that like or comment on the post. So I'll post a video. I post 2 or 3 videos a week. I'm going to probably be publishing more now that I've kind of got my processes down. But people will just reach out to me and say, hey, I've been watching your videos. I've seen your posts. I'd like to talk to you about your services. And the main thing that they always say is that it feels like I know you. And it's kind of, it's a little bit weird too sometimes, because you don't know them at all. Like you've never been introduced to them. They never liked your post. They never commented. It's just this person, and they're saying they know you. And I think that's the power that video ultimately has.
And you did mention that at the beginning, but I think that's a really key piece, because I think that people will connect with you in that way that, you can not post at all on social media, or you can post little, text posts, whatever, links to articles, whatever. But when they actually see you and hear you and get to know your personality, I think it helps people connect with you in a totally different way. And for us, it's made a significant difference this last year with us converting our podcast to be not just audio, but also video version. And then, we launched webinars, which we then put on YouTube. And then, you've kind of taught some of the practices of repurposing the content that we do. So when we do a video, we can chop it up, like you said earlier, and then use that in little snippets on LinkedIn. And it really has made a big difference for us that people really get to know the heart of Summit and who we are behind the scenes. And then, it's increased our website traffic. It's increased our new clients that have signed on. So it's been great for us.
Yeah, then totally. And then there's also another thing that's interesting too, and it's, you might not think about this or even see why it's valuable, but people will, like, you also end up not talking to the people that you shouldn't talk to anyway. So people that are not gonna vibe with you, they can kind of see that, and it kind of filters them out before they ever talk to you. Because when you think about if you're doing video and doing all these things, you really want to be talking to the right people. And so when it attracts the right people, and it kind of pushes the people that would never work with you anyway for any number of different reasons, it pushes them away. They go elsewhere, which is great, right? It's that's the best thing for both people.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of accelerating the process of either pulling people towards you or pushing them away. And then it also scales too, right? Because it's you do one video, and you, like you said, you can push it to YouTube, you can push it to LinkedIn, you can put it on your website. When you're talking to a prospect, you can remember that you did this video, you can send it to them, hand deliver that video to them. You can, if you do a podcast with someone else, you can give that podcast to the people that were guests. You can, it's there's just all these different creative ways that you can use this video content. And the other thing too is just even your own, even just within your own network. So even if we're not talking social media and stuff, you're just talking about your networking groups that you've been a part of for a long time, they're going to see you differently too, because you're going to be one of the only people that's doing this kind of innovative work. And it's going to strengthen your own local network as well, because they're going to see you on LinkedIn too. They might not post or they might not like or comment on it, just because people sometimes just don't for whatever reason. But it just strengthens all these different things, and it just makes you stand out to pretty much everybody.
Yeah, I'm not as involved in the sales process as I used to be, but where I've really noticed it is in our interviewing process. So when I interview someone for a job, they do come in like they already know me a lot of times, because again, they're just doing that research. Even if it's a day of research. Oh, I'm interviewing with Summit today. The first thing they find is all our videos out there. Oh, I'm interviewing with Jamie, and they've watched however many videos of me already talking, and it feels very comfortable from the beginning. And I also think it does weed out a little bit of those people that are oh, should I interview with Summit? And they kind of see our culture, and they're oh wow, this is who they are. They're pretty relaxed, or they're, this is how they do things. And so I think that's really where I've seen it.
Yeah, or if they're afraid of video, you're gonna know if you look at our stuff, you're gonna be on video, so you better be comfortable with it if you're gonna apply. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's where I've seen a lot of it. And then on the flip side of that, to your point that not a lot of companies are doing it, a lot of times when we take on a new client, that's kind of where I get involved. And before we have that, internal kickoff meeting, I'll go to the website, and I don't see a lot of video on there. I don't see a lot of, when I'm trying to research a client that we're just starting with, I don't see a lot of video. I see a lot of written text, and I see a lot of, articles, but I don't really ever see a video of someone before I actually meet with them for that first time. So I think your point is well taken, that I think there aren't a lot of companies doing it yet.
Yeah, and then just a little bit of video will prompt somebody, because sometimes we write a lot of stuff on our website, and to be honest, do not read it. They just don't. Where they will read it is if they've kind of gotten to, if they're serious about your service, they will read it in detail. Or if they've been able to see a couple clips where they're oh, these guys are cool. They have some interesting things to say. Then they'll dig deeper into a lot of that text. But you'll see a lot of websites where there's just a lot of text, and just people don't dig into it. One other thing I was going to mention too on the video end that I think is, I kind of touched on this, but when you start to go on video, there's a lot of just like personal like growth you go through. So like you just get better at articulating your points in general. You just become more confident in general. And I think that alone, outside of all the business stuff, is huge, because it's like when you go, the next time you go on stage, if that ever happens again, you know, it's like just the personal growth you get by forging a path through and getting on video and kind of just being uncomfortable. It opens up so many other like just personal doors. And just even for me as a kind of a little bit more on the introverted side, that's been a huge thing for me.
Sure.
Reminds me of Zach, who has been on this podcast before, and he's a big Brene Brown fan, and Brene Brown, right?
Yeah.
Am I saying that name right? Yeah. I was like, all of a sudden I'm like, am I saying that? Yes. And you know, the vulnerability TED Talk that she had, he actually assigned for me to watch that. And that is like, exactly like you have to push through that vulnerability to grow. And it's hard. I mean, for me, it is not my natural, just not a natural skill set for me. But like where Jody can just get on anytime, anywhere, talk about anything, right? It's a challenge for me, but pushing through that and it really just opens you up for other opportunities and just more networking, which I have really enjoyed on LinkedIn, and just kind of what I've learned from you, Stephen.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because like when I look back, like it was like last Christmas, not it was 2019. I was making a commitment to do video on LinkedIn. I remember like being like just like deathly afraid, and like looking back, I'm like, that was so silly. Like, but it's just like,
well, now if anyone looked at any of your videos, they would never think that of you, because you are so natural in your videos. Which
is cool to think. Like you basically can. I think anybody could really do that. It's just like, and the other, I think something that's just keep in mind as well is like when you first start posting videos, most people don't even see it. Which is the funny thing, like you post on social media, it's like not everyone sees your stuff. It's like that when you do it long term, people will see it. Really the first couple of people that will see it is just like your friends and family. So you just have to be ready to like not care about what they think, because they ultimately aren't going to be buying your services most likely. So it's like it doesn't really matter what they think. Like, why are you doing that? It's just like it doesn't matter. It's like you're there to like serve a purpose for your clients and to give them value. And so keep your mind focused on helping who you think you can help, not what your friends and family are going to say when you post on Facebook or LinkedIn or anything like that, because their opinion doesn't matter. Even the good stuff that they say, you know, good job. I mean, maybe that helps you a little bit, but that isn't who you're trying to really serve. So you got to be focused on like, who can you help?
Yeah, I wish my mom's opinion
and most of them aren't gonna.
When it came to sales, because my mom was always like, "Oh, you're doing such a nice job," and like, "I'm glad you're watching them." But yeah, like, Mom, why don't you come buy some services, or you know,
buy my thought leadership package.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about video, which I think has been very helpful. Is there any other? I mean, we're getting a little close on time here, so I'll make sure we don't miss any other things that people are going to learn if they come to you, or other things people should be thinking about in terms of marketing.
Well, I think LinkedIn is a great place, especially for anybody who's doing business to business, and you know, being active there and treating it. You know, I could talk for a couple hours on LinkedIn strategy, but the easiest thing for me to say really is that LinkedIn is a social network. It's a networking platform. So a lot of times people go there and when they do post, they're posting like links to their blog. They just show up, they post something, and they leave. And I always like to think, it's like, tell people, it's like, okay, so if you went to a networking group, an in-person networking group, and you came in and you just said something and then you left, like you wouldn't get much value out of it. So the best way to, like, I could go into a lot of different tactical things, but when you think about LinkedIn, how can you apply the things you know how to do in person into a social platform and come with that mindset, interact with people, you know, have some purpose, provide value to people, talk to people, make connections. Don't try to pitch them just like you wouldn't. I mean, some people do it at networking events, but it doesn't usually go very well, right? And when you think about a networking group, who are the people that do the best? It's like the person that runs the group, the person that puts all the effort in to put the group together, right? And it's the people that are referring people, talking and giving advice and saying, do this, do this. It's not the people that are sitting on the sidelines just waiting for something to happen. So take the same approach with LinkedIn. Don't be the person that's just like IMing people and saying, hey, will you do business with me?
Yeah.
Because that's just like everyone just tunes that out.
Yeah. I was going to say that I think that's why you were such a great fit for us, is that we don't like that cold call, cold email approach, that hard sell. That's just not who we are, and you really teach that, like the more authentic, really natural engagement. I mean, I say natural, it takes work, and you teach people how to do that work, but how to make it authentic and not to be the person who's, requesting connections on LinkedIn and then immediately sending an email to try to. I don't know how that works for anybody. Nobody likes those, but building true engagement with people. I've met several people in your mastermind group that, now I engage with every single week on LinkedIn, and it really, really helps just increase your connections.
Yeah, totally. And I think the best way that I help people like get into the right mindset is just to say, it's like, instead of thinking about lead generation, you're thinking about like relationship generation.
Yeah.
And even that's probably a little bit too robotic. It's just, you're just there to like create relationships with people.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to get, clients super fast, just play the long game, create a lot of connections, try to give them something when you can, and just network and do what you normally would. And I guess the advantage of it, people might say, well, okay, well then if it's just another networking group, why not just stick with my local one? And the thing I would say there is that, well, most networking groups, I'm in one, I like it, but it's actually pretty small, right? So when I joined this networking group, there's 40 people on a Zoom call, and you're there for an hour and a half, and you have like 30 seconds to say something.
Yeah.
And whereas on LinkedIn, you can really kind of network at scale. It's like you can build trust at scale. When I make a post every day, it reaches 1,000 to 10,000 people every day. Where else can you go where you make a post? It's like you're on stage talking to that many people every day. That's a pretty insane ability, and it's there to be taken advantage of. So I just encourage people to seize on the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And hopefully some people that I'm connected to on LinkedIn are listening to this, because I can't tell you how many of those cold messages I get a day where it's just like, oh, thanks for connecting, and let's do you want to do this service? I'm like, well, we kind of just met, let's have a little dating period here first. That's kind of the way I look at it, is like, I think those authentic relationships are important, right? Like if I'm connected to you and we're posting material and you're aware of what I do, when you're looking for that service, you're going to come to me, right? And that's kind of the way I look at it, is, again, when I'm looking for that payroll service, I'm going to come to that company that I see posting those things all the time. And so I think that's a much better way to go. And I appreciate that tip, and I'm sure our listeners do as well.
Yeah.
And then one final thing on the LinkedIn thing is, like, I do find, like, with all these platforms, it's like they do grow, they do become saturated, and people get tired of them, and then new ones appear. And so one of the things I always do here is just like, well, am I too late? Is LinkedIn, and the one thing I always like to say is, like, even if you never get, this is just like video, even if you never got a client from LinkedIn, using social media, using these platforms, these are skills that are not going to disappear. Or these are things that are not going to disappear, and the skills to use them and know how to maneuver through them and leverage them, it's only going to get more intense. So the people that are starting now and learning how, they're going to be several legs up from the people that don't. And like I said, it's only going to get more intense. So if it's not LinkedIn, it's going to be something else. And you can transfer these skills as you go and you learn new things. And so it's just like, to me, it's a no-brainer. But like I like to stress to people that, like, and COVID just accelerated everything. And it was already happening, but in some ways, COVID should be a wake-up call that, like, this is only going to get more intense. It's going to get more competitive. People are going to be more and more people are going to be on video doing content. So if you're not, you're really going to be limited in terms of like how you grow. If you want to be a big business that continues to grow with some sort of scale, then you're going to need to learn how to use these things.
Yeah.
Great. And I appreciate that. And I think usually I ask for final thoughts, but I think that was a great final thought. So I'm going to let you close on that. Kelly, any final thoughts from you?
No, I think that's great. I think, Stephen, you have been just a huge asset for us. We have been really, really lucky to have gone through your course and be a part of your group, and we appreciate that.
I appreciate that, those comments, and it's been great working with you guys too. I've actually been working with you guys for a long time with my previous business and everything. So you guys have been a huge inspiration, and it's been great working with you guys. So thanks for having me on.
Great. Real quick, how do people get hold of you?
Yeah, so you can obviously find me on LinkedIn. You can also go to my website. It's at sgplabs.com. And also on LinkedIn, you can look up Stephen Gregory Pope, and that'll pop up. And
you'll see his videos.
Exactly. I should have known you would have said LinkedIn there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming, and great show. Thank you.